This is the Marvel Legends series, Marvel Studios' What If? Marvel's Captain Carter and the Hydra Stomper. I decided to do a review of both these figures at the same time because, well, they were both in the same episode, and to me, at least, you can't really have one without the other. I think they have to be together. If you're getting Captain Carter, you need the Hydra Stomper and vice versa. I did not know the Hydra Stomper was going to be this huge. Oh my goodness. And Captain Carter, part of the Marvel's The Watcher Build-A-Figure wave. She is the highly sought after figure in the entire wave, I think. Everybody wants her. So best of luck to everybody hunting her down. I picked up both figures at Hobby Corner. Let's get them out of packaging. And here are Steve and Peggy out of packaging, and they look great together. This is a delicious duo that Hasbro has given us. I'll admit, it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be to make Peggy ride Steve. And it feels like, just overall looking at it, that the Hydra Stomper is somewhat out of scale with Peggy. Just a little bit. He should be about 15% bigger than what he is right now. Because if you look at the backside, I have Peggy on her knees riding Steve, and it's supposed to be that the feet should be clamped on to those foot pads, but there's just not enough clearance to do so. It took me like a good half hour to get both figures in this position, and the best way I could do it was to actually have her kneeling, have her knees just wedged on top of those foot pads, and with her grabbing Steve like a bronco. And that's the best I could do. It looks great. It's very satisfying once you get it in this position. I wanted to do it in a more horizontal position, but I did not have stands or flight stands that could support the weight of the Hydra Stomper. So this was the best I could do. And I thought it came out great. It's just a little sad, a little bit disappointing, just a little bit, that we could not get Peggy to actually put her feet on those foot pads as she did on the show. But as it is, it's actually pretty good. It's a great display piece for both these figures, and I couldn't be happier. So let's begin with the Hydra Stomper. Here he is with the Ironmonger, and you can clearly see how much taller the figure is. I was actually surprised. I thought they would be about the same height or a little bit smaller, and look how much beefier the figure is. Sure, the Ironmonger has a bigger torso, a bigger chest, but the arms and the limbs, the Hydra Stomper could well take out the Ironmonger if they both went into combat. They've been in the same timeline. The figure comes with the two blast effects. Unfortunately, these only work as booster rockets. Here, they don't really fit onto the gun, the machine gun. You'd have to get something like what we got with the Ironmonger, or another Iron Man blast effect. Now, the figure also comes with an extra pair of hands. These are the clenched fist or punching hands, which are actually pretty cool, but I'm more partial with the open hands. I don't know why. I actually like them better than the closed fist ones. Okay, now Shartimus Prime had mentioned that the figure flops all over the place. I kind of get what he's saying, but what I wanted to discuss is you need an understanding of how the foot articulation works for this figure if you don't want the figure flopping around. Before we get into that, let's just talk about the articulation very briefly. The head is on a double ball jointed peg. There's a ball joint on top and there's a ball joint at the bottom. The torso can ratchet sidewards, can go a little bit forward and backward, and can do sideward slanted articulation. Basically, it's a very sophisticated ball joint. The shoulders go forward and backward. I love the fact that the shoulder piece, which is on a ring right there attached to the shoulder, just follows the arm's rotation a lot better than, say, the Ironmonger or the other Iron Man figures or War Machine figures. Bicep has a swivel. Elbow has a ratcheting hinge. Wrists can go swivel and go in and out. Same with the fists. The hips are on ball joints, and you do the splits. You can do forward, backward. It rashes a little bit. It just feels like sometimes you're going to break that peg as you're moving the legs forward and backward. The thighs are on swivels. Knees, I think it's a single joint. Yep, a single knee joint. That's fine. It ratchets. And then finally the ankles. And the way the ankles work is there is a hinge right here. You see that hinge right there. And the foot essentially is really like half a foot, like mostly toes. There is a swivel right here because of that peg from that hinge. And essentially you need to work out a way to balance the entire weight of the stomper onto these soles or these feet bases. That's it. You must remember that the foot does not extend up to the back of the ankles. And that's the common mistake that people do when they're trying to stand the monger up. They feel like there's more feet up there and they stand it like this. With a backpack, it's really going to flop. So if you don't want the figure flopping or falling down constantly, you must understand that the weight has to be distributed only to 75% of the foot, which is essentially this, or perceived ratio, because this is 100% perceived ratio for the foot. And if you just think that the foot is only, he's like on tippy toes, then you'll be fine. You can get him in amazing poses without him just really flopping all over the place. And this is like a how to pose tutorial. And there's a lot of dynamic poses you can get him if you understand how that foot works. So you can get in a very stable straddle stance like this. Let me see if I can just bend him this. Yeah, he's like, Peggy, no! And then just make sure that he's leveled out. The feet are just leveled out. And he's going to stand perfectly. I mean, if you even hit the table, he's fine. As long as you have an understanding of how the feet and how the weight should be distributed on the soles of his feet. Details of the figure, there's hardly any paint apps on the figure except for that white star and a C15. The eyes are separate pieces. They've been painted separately, which is great, so you don't have as much quality issues. And basically what you're seeing is just a lot of this green and beige plastic or brownish green plastic that they've put on the figure. And it's great. I love the fact that they can already come up with pieces that are colored perfectly without them having to paint it. Some more details here. You've got some handlebars on the thighs, on the chest, so Steve can climb up. The only thing really missing with this figure, much like the Ironmonger, is an opening cockpit in the chest area. If they had given us something like an opening cockpit that would expose Steve's head or torso, that would make this figure absolutely perfect. It would make it an 11. But as it is, this is as good as it gets, folks. This is the best Hydra Stomper we've gotten, despite being just a tad bit out of scale, I think, in my opinion. But I'm pretty sure Hasbro nailed the scale. But I just wish he was a little bit bigger. The figure is going to get a 9.5 out of 10. I absolutely love this figure. And I'm sure a lot of customizers are going to come up with ways to just open up that chest and all of that. Moving on to Peggy as Captain Carter. It is a beautiful, beautiful figure. I have a few gripes about the figure, just a few nitpicks. I know, I have to do it. But as it is, the figure looks gorgeous. I was absolutely blown away by this figure. One thing you will notice is the shield is a little bit small. I was kind of hoping they'd give her a bigger shield, but I guess they were trying to match the proportion of the shield with the character. But I don't think that's fair, because it's the exact same shield that Steve had, and it should be the same size if they're going to be accurate about it. So I think the shield is a little bit too small. Also, there's no way to just hook it up on her back. It should be at least 20% bigger than this. Okay, next thing is, this is a very small nitpick, is she's got a lot of articulation. I'll give her that, but and very nice engineering on the articulation to boot. But it's very difficult to get her in dynamic poses, like really flexible poses, because I don't think it's the engineering of the articulation's fault. It's mainly because of the sculpt, the way the hip had been sculpted, as well as the upper thighs. It's just really impossible to get more than like 50 degrees angle up on the foot, on the leg when it tries to kick up. It's a shame because she had a lot of dynamic poses, like crouching poses and all that. That could have been achieved had they, I don't know how they could have done it. Mafex and Figure Arts really have a good way of dealing with that, but somehow the Legends, Marvel, Hasbro has always been restricted with the sculpt, and it's a shame because I wish they could have done a better job at the hip articulation. Also, and this is again not the fault of the engineering because there's so much engineering on the neck, but the hair sculpt really hinders her from looking up. And that was a very crucial part of articulation, in my opinion, that Peggy should be able to look up, because when she rides the Stomper or when she's crouching, a certain degree of posability for the neck should be at least 45-degree tilt on the neck, and it's a shame she can't do that. The only way she can look up is if you move her chest up this way. And yeah, but I totally get where they're coming from. They had to sacrifice that just to give her very good hair sculpt. Her hair looks fantastic. She must have used amazing conditioner, and her hairdresser must really be on point every time she goes into battle with this kind of gorgeous hair. So the neck again is on a ball joint, like here. It's a double ball joint. There's also another ball joint at the base of the neck. Upper torso is on a ball joint. No waist articulation. No butterfly joints. I was surprised. I thought they would put a little bit of a butterfly joint there, but arms can go in and out, forward and backward. Bicep swivel, bicep cut right there. No quality issue in mind, thankfully. Double jointed elbows. This is amazing. I love it. It's pinless, and Hasbro's really getting great, really getting better at this kind of technology. And look at that, very seamless elbow, double joints. I love that. Hinge wrists, you can go swivel. Again, like I said, the hips can do a little bit of a split and restricted forward and backward motion. They had to perfect her buttoctal region for the entire sculpt, and I'm very grateful for that. But as it is, it was a compromise on the motion of the legs forward and backward. But you know, she has a great looking rear end, and look at that, very nicely sculpted. Well done to the artistic designers of this figure. Thighs on a swivel, double jointed knees. The ankles are on hinges. They can also a little bit of a swivel right here, ankle tilt right here. On my copy of the figure, the hinges were a little bit frozen. It took me a good 25 minutes just to unfreeze those joints, just to be able to make them move up and down. So thankfully, no quality issues on this figure. Paint apps. Let's talk about paint apps for a second right here. The Union Jack on her chest is arguably where most of the quality issues are going to lie. And it's the paint app, the white paint apps, that are really the culprit yet again. And you can clearly see the unevenness of the way the white paint has been applied. Too thin here, too thick here. And so another copy of the figure I saw in the store, there was some smudging of white and black on the red. And it's a shame because this is not a difficult pattern to do. They could easily paint that, do tempos on it. But that's where you need to look out for. So if you can find several on the pegs, again, you're very lucky. And you just have to look at that chest area. As far as the head sculpt goes, it is painted beautifully. Look at those lovely eyes. I think they did well there. If you're going to look out for something on the head sculpt, I guess it's the lips. Make sure that the lipstick is painted on squarely and dead center on the lips and not skewed to the left or to the right. Other than that, a fantastic figure. It is a wonderful rendition of the What If Captain Carter. And for some size comparisons, here is Peggy with worthy Steve, and she is about 3 millimeters taller than Steve. I am shocked. And like I mentioned earlier, this is the size of the shield she should have I mean, this is too small, obviously. You look at this. This is the actual vibranium shield that Tony had, that Howard had. And he gave it to Steve because Steve wanted a Frisbee. And see the big difference in size. I mean, it should have been a little bit bigger. It doesn't have to be this big, but not this small. So who do you think did it better, Peggy or Steve? My money is still on Peggy. And just for fun, here is Peggy carrying Steve, injured in battle, and Peggy carrying the love of her life. It is possible. That's how stable this figure is. You can carry a more massive figure than itself, and wow, I am impressed at how stable those legs are of this Peggy Carter figure. Some final thoughts on both these figures, the What If Hydra Stomper and Marvel's Captain Carter. I absolutely love these two figures. Both of them are going to get a 9.5 out of 10. I had a few minor complaints for each figure. That's why they don't exactly get perfect scores. But as it is, these figures are absolutely amazing. If you watch the show, you are going to love these figures. If you're planning on getting just one, you got to stop yourself right there. You have to get both these figures. You cannot have one without the other. They are just a perfect combination. I love how Hasbro designed both of these figures. They can interact with each other. They're just great display pieces and a lot of fun to play with. Next up, I want to say I was right about the shield. This is how the shield should have been. It should have been at least this big, or maybe a little smaller, but she should have gotten this exact same shield that Steve had, you know, if Steve became the Captain America. Captain Carter should get the exact same shield from Howard Stark. And the figure is actually a bigger figure than worthy Captain America, so I don't understand why they had to shrink that shield. Also, you see I have her here with Mjolnir. I'm just guessing if Steve was worthy of Mjolnir in his timeline, there's no reason not to believe that Peggy would have been worthy as well of Mjolnir in her timeline. So I thought this is a great setup for Peggy, and Steve in the background as the Hydra Stomper. I just love this figure. Enough gushing about these two figures. If you're a big fan of the show and you love Marvel Legends, you have got to pick these two up. Best of luck to everybody hunting these figures down. I know a lot of scalpers, hoarders, and a lot of collectors are trying to get their hands on these figures. Best of luck to everybody hunting these figures down. Let me know in the comment section what you think of the Hydra Stomper and Captain Carter from the What If Marvel Legends line. Hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of my latest video reviews. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.